Good afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and start our meeting a little bit early because we've got a lot of material today, so I want to make sure that we get everything in, including questions from everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and start. So welcome. My name is Cindy Gwelly. For those of you who don't know me, I'm president of AOI this year. And thank you for joining us for our last meeting of the season. After this, we take the summer off, and we're not going to meet again until September. So thank you for being with us. Our May meeting was with Rebecca Boggs Roberts, and that video, if you did not get a chance to hear her talk about her mother, Cokie Roberts, and her grandmother, Lindy Boggs, and the relationship between the three of them and their family history in Washington, that is available on our website, on our YouTube channel, and we're going to go ahead and take that as our official record of our May meeting. So if you didn't get a chance to see that, she did a great job and a great talk, so that's a fun one to go and watch if you don't get a chance to see that. We have some new members, and I'm going to throw it to Carolyn to tell us about two new members that we have for this month.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have two new members since the last meeting. Jeanette Quick, who's a lawyer, Georgetown University alum, and lives in Southwest DC. We don't have who referred her to AOI. And Keith Parsons, attorney and code official at the Georgetown University, or from the Georgetown University. He writes poetry about buildings and collects cast iron. So, welcome. I don't think either of them are here, but welcome.
I don't think so.
And in the interest of time, we can't ask our visitors. We have a lot of visitors, but if you could just wave so everybody can welcome our visitors. Wave if you're a visitor. Okay. Okay.
Welcome, Zoe.
And I'll send it back to you. Oh, we have to vote on the.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I move to.
But we'll take a vote. Let's do a very simple yay or nay. We'll vote to have Jeanette and Keith become members. All who agree, yay.
Yay.
Anybody who is against Georgetown University Law School wants to say no? No? All right. Okay. We'll let the lawyers in. More lawyers. We bring them in. Wonderful. Well, thank you. So we've got our two new members, that wraps that up for the spring. So we're doing really well with new members, and we're thrilled. So please keep talking us up. Tell people about us, and we're always happy to have new faces that come in. So thanks for that. And on the flip side of that, if you have not renewed, this is your last chance to renew for the year before the newsletters get cut off for you. The valuable newsletters which you can still read online, but they will not be in your inbox, your literal mailbox. So please, if you have not renewed yet, please go ahead and do so. I want to give us, we keep talking about preservation, so there's a lot that is out there on a daily basis, and things are changing every week. So I want to go ahead and give you a couple of preservation updates. I know, were there boos already on some of that? Number one, the reflecting pool. If you have not had a chance to keep up with how the American blue, patriotic blue, is doing in the reflecting pool, it is now a beautiful algae green, which those of us who have lived here long enough could have told you would have happened, as the experts also told everyone was going to happen, with the dark color and the warmth and the sunlight and the algae growth. As of 2 days ago, they were pouring hydrogen peroxide into the reflecting pool to try to get rid of the algae, and I believe there's a nice blue rim around the green for the moment. So yes, you can. If it doesn't work on there, you can inject it and get rid of COVID, but don't do that. Either way, so that is going to be an ongoing project for sure. So, so that is ongoing. What else do we have? There is now new legislation that was introduced by House Democrats to stop the building of the arch in the Memorial Bridge. That it has not passed yet, but it was introduced, and there were 6 members of Congress who wrote a very strongly worded letter to the acting director of the National Park Service, saying that this would be illegal to do under multiple laws governing the National Mall, the monuments, and Washington in general, and needs congressional approval. That joins a lawsuit that has been filed by Vietnam veterans to try to stop the building of the arch as well. So that is ongoing, but that is new for the arch. So that is still kind of in progress. There is also a new lawsuit that includes the DC Preservation League and the Committee of 100, who have joined to stop the attempt to remake West Potomac Park with the cherry trees. There is a plan to add 250 8-foot statues as well as an amphitheater all around the West Potomac Park. So there's a new lawsuit trying to stop that as well. We're keeping lawyers in business. And keeping them busy, and hopefully these have the same outcome as the Kennedy Center. So the Kennedy Center, if you did not get a chance to see it, I've got some pictures from the huge crowd that was waiting at the deadline to see the Donald Trump's name taken off the Kennedy Center. That didn't happen for the deadline, but it did happen soon after. But it was covered over by a tarp so that people could not witness the removal. And the tarp has been left in place permanently for the moment. So that is the image in the middle. A judge has requested information by tomorrow from the board of the Kennedy Center as to what their renovation plans are, what the plans are for this entrance, how they are going to go forward, and also all of the programming that should be planned and take place after July 5th. So that is ongoing, but that was a preservation win for the moment, and hopefully the rest of these will also turn out in DC's favor. Let's just say. So I had, in looking at the Kennedy Center, and I was on social media, I'm not sure how much you all are on social media, so I wanted to make sure you saw this. Somebody posted that when the Kennedy Center originally went up, was built in 1971, that there were panels that were surrounding the construction site, and they had given over the panels to different states to paint something on those panels that represented their states. And so these are some images from that. There's one that depicts, obviously, the Kennedy Center itself, one from Maryland, one showing Mount Rushmore, and I thought that I had never seen that before, so I don't know if any of you remember this, or if you remember seeing this. Is that, some of you were around at that point? Did you all walk around, see any of these? Anybody remember that? No. Okay, well, these are them. And I think it'd be interesting to see if anybody comes up with any other photographs from that time. And I think that's one of the amazing things about social media, is that people are able to share things that would normally just be sitting probably in their garage or from some slides that are in their basement somewhere. So, but I thought that was fabulous that they had done that. So what a difference between kind of being welcoming and bringing people in and participating, and the hanging that is there now. That is just completely covering that over. So if you come across any other memorabilia from the Kennedy Center, or any memories, brochures, booklets, anything, please share them. We'd love to see them, and we'll put them on our own social media so everybody else can see them as well. As a reminder of our social media, we have a presence, as it is, and that is somewhat blurry, but we are on LinkedIn, we're on Threads, we're on Blue Sky, we're on Instagram, and we do put photographs of our lunches, photographs of things that we think you will find of interest. So check us out if you happen to be on social media at all and want to come in and see us. We do still have, every month, we are going to have our scanner and our computer. So don't forget that if you have anything in your attic or your garage or your basement that you want to scan in and be able to digitize, have a keepsake, we want you to be able to preserve your own memories, which will in turn preserve DC memories, and we are happy to help you do that. So you do not have to come with a huge box. You could have your great-grandmother's wedding certificate, marriage certificate, that birth certificate that you want to digitize or scan in. Bring it. We'll help you scan it. We'll put it on a flash drive. You take it home, and you will have a copy of that. So don't forget about that. I'm going to keep bringing that huge scanner in until somebody uses it. So do me a favor and come use it in some way for me. Make me feel validated in that way. We do still have our podcast, and it is growing again exponentially, meaning we have an interview that we are going to be putting on our podcast. And so Ariana Henry is putting all of you to shame because she gave us her September 11th memory that will soon be on our podcast. And we want to collect all of your memories of September 11th, of other big events, other big times that you remember, even if it's just the ice cream truck coming down and that was your very favorite childhood memory of living in DC. We want to hear about it. So if you want to tape it yourself and send it to us like Ariadne did, we are happy to have it. If you want us to help you with it, we are happy to do it at lunch, before lunch, after lunch, or by Zoom. You can do it in the comfort of your own home, and we can record that for you, and we can get that on. And we are, with our own preservation, not only do we want your stories, but we are preserving AOI stories. We are moving forward with collecting all of the documents and photographs that we have at the DC History Center. We are getting those digitized, and we are going to be spending the next couple of months doing that. So we'll let you know, and we'll be sharing all the things that we find with you as well. As part of our preservation efforts, we have been talking about our own history, and today we have Gary Scott, who is going to tell us about a 19th century AOI member. And what connection that he still has with DC today, because you can actually go visit a site that is connected with Edward Shaw today. So I'm going to turn it over to Gary so that he can tell us about Edward Shaw.
Hello. For 32 years, I was regional historian of the National Park Service, National Capital Region. I dealt with all the parks in Washington, the national monuments, and about 4 Civil War battlefields. I did a lot of Civil War, and I, in the 80s, restored the house where Lincoln died across from Ford Theater. And then I restored the federal headquarters at Antietam National Battlefield. So I fielded in my work a lot of questions about the Civil War. And in 1997, I got a call from the superintendent of Antietam National Battlefield, John Howard, that said a man called him, his name was Ed Shaw. And Ed Shaw said he had found Clara Barton's apartment in downtown Washington. And so I called Ed Shaw. And Ed Shaw told me about this sign that he found in the attic of a building about to be torn down in downtown Washington, 437 7th Street Northwest. The building was owned by the General Services Administration, and it was slated to be torn down. And this man on the phone told me that he found this sign in the attic, which said, "Missing Soldiers Office, 3rd floor, room 9, Miss Clara Barton." Well, I immediately went down and met the man, and he took me to the building. His name wasn't Ed Shaw, his name was Richard Lyons. He was a carpenter for the General Services Administration, and he'd been slated to supervise the demolition of the building. In the meantime, on the 3rd floor, he found in the attic a treasure trove of Civil War artifacts. And so we went down with the Historic Preservation Officer of the District of Columbia, Steve Race at that time, and we climbed up into the attic. And we found a tranche of Civil War newspapers, letters, clothes, bandages, boxes, all sorts of different artifacts from the period of the Civil War. And we looked over it, and it was thick on the floor of this attic. And so we took several of the boxes down, and I took them back to the National Park Service, because the man who did it, Richard Lyons, told me, "We're going to tear down the building, so we've got to get rid of all this stuff." So I took 7 boxes to the National Park Service. And then I called Linda Wheeler, who was with the Washington Post, and she came down and interviewed me and looked at the artifacts that we found. This is one artifact which was off of a box, and the box said, "Clara Barton, 488, 3rd story, and Washington, D.C." And so these were boxes that obviously that had been given to her to take to the battlefields. And actually from this apartment, she took material to the battlefields to help the wounded soldiers during the Civil War. And she did this all during the Civil War. That's Clara Barton there. She was from Massachusetts. She had been a school teacher, and she had worked at the patent office. And she was one of the first women to be employed by the United States government before the Civil War, probably the very first. And she worked with Edward Shaw at the patent office. And he was her landlord at this building down on 7th Street. She lived in room 9, he lived in room 12, across the hall. And we found that on the door there still was room 9, and then when we went across the hall there was still a room 12. The rooms were still there. She had one large room in which she kept her battlefield supplies, and then one small room at the end where she slept. And there was a hallway, and there were other people living there. But what was remaining on that 3rd floor was Clara Barton Civil War apartments. And Ed Shaw, of course, was in the attic. Were 200 letters to Ed Shaw from his mother in Massachusetts. There were all sorts of publications from the patent office that had his name in it. And in the place at the end of the Civil War, she started her missing soldiers office, where she went to the battlefields and found soldiers who had not reported in, where their families said were missing. And she would publish these lists of missing soldiers and she was established an office of missing soldiers. And she found 22,000 soldiers that were missing, including those at the Andersonville prison camp, where she went down and put tombstones on the back graves of those that she had found. And then coming back and forth to this apartment where Ed Shaw was her landlord. Now, Ed Shaw was a member of the oldest inhabitants of the District of Columbia. He was one of the first members, and he lived until 1914. He moved out of the apartment in about 1871, and then he moved to 1015 East Capitol Street, and he died there in 1914. He's buried in Rock Creek Cemetery, and he was a member of the oldest inhabitants. Clara Barton, of course, lived at Glen Echo. She died there in 1912 at the Clara Barton House in Glen Echo. And of course, after the Civil War, she went to Europe, met people who were involved in the International Red Cross, and they encouraged her to come back to America and found the American Red Cross. And that's my story.
How did it happen that treasure trove was not discovered, remained undiscovered so long? What was that building used for since the time of Clara Barton? Do you know?
Well, it was used for many things, but they never went up on the third floor. And there was no electricity on the third floor. There were just gas lights. And it hadn't been occupied in generations. And the last place, it was the Boyce and Lewis shoe store. And I talked to the Boyce and Lewis people, and they said, we never went up on the third floor. We thought it was haunted.
It was. What happened to all the things that you found up there, particularly the sign?
The General Services Administration decided to save the building, and they found a caretaker. The Museum of Civil War Medicine in Frederick, Maryland, took it over, and now it is a museum for Clara Barton's Missing Soldiers Office. It's open every day, and you can go down and see it.
So, the sign is out front. Is that the actual
Yeah, no, the sign out front is not the original sign. The original sign is upstairs on the third floor.
The haunted third?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for saving it. It's quite wonderful of you.
Well done, Gary.
Thank you.
How are we doing on time? Doing on time. All right. You want to come do trivia? Come on up. Come on up. I'm going to pass it along to our historian, Nelson Rimmensnyder, to give our trivia.
Okay. How many here have voted in every election since Home Rule, 1975? Oh, quite a few. Oh, get closer to the phone. How many have voted in every election since Home Rule, 1975? Have you heard me now?
If we're old enough.
Well, I have. Well, I have a question today about the regulation, the history of the regulation of building heights in the city. Because I followed every election very closely, the candidates, their platforms. This election, almost everybody had a view on the building heights, thinks it should be modified in some way for various reasons. And even including taking away the federal authority and giving it all to the Council of the District of Columbia. So I wanted to do a little bit on the origin of the building height. President Washington's Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson was a chief advisor to the president on the development of the new capital city. Jefferson in 1791 recommended that the president issue building height and construction regulations for the new capital. Jefferson was particularly impressed with the regulation of building heights and in a particular European capital that he was very familiar with. So the question is, what capital impressed? Well, I should have said no previous winner, and have to raise your hands. We have all these previous winners? Paris, okay. Okay. Now, this is what he had told the president about his observations of Paris. He said, in Paris, it is forbidden to build a house beyond a given height. It is also admitted to be a good restriction. It keeps the houses low and convenient, and the streets light and airy. So the first two regulations that were issued by the president on the advice of Jefferson were as follows, 1791. That the outer and party walls of all houses within said city be of brick or stone. 2, that the wall of no house is to be higher than 40 feet to the roof in any part of the city, nor shall any be lower than 35 feet on any of the avenues. Now, of course, that's evolved a lot since 1791, as we know. Okay, so we have a winner, Paris. That's a connection we have with Paris. It influenced having building height regulations here. Any questions?
When did the heights go up?
Well, they went up very early. After 1800, they went up about 5 feet on certain avenues. They started signaling out certain avenues and certain streets. It got, much more involved, the regulations. And it went on from there. It evolved all the way up until 1890s, when Congress passed legislation allowing no building to be more than 120 feet, and later on 160 feet. The idea was not to have skyscrapers, tall buildings here, which was happening in cities around the world and in the United States. And so that's the. So I hope you answered your question. Yes.
What about the Cairo? When the Cairo went up, that changed the height. There's a relationship between the height of the building and the width of the street. That was the 40s, I think. That was the Cairo Park building in Piedmont? Yeah.
I was familiar with that, but I don't recall the details of it.
It was previously a certain number of stories, and so the Cairo built that number of stories, but with very high ceilings.
Ah.
And that's when it was changed to a linear foot maximum.
Why were those particular heights chosen? I mean, 10 foot more or 10 foot less when you changed?
Well, I think they were compared. It's what he brought back from Paris. They were, I think he had, more details. He took, notes of what he observed in Paris, and I think the early ones were based on some of the earlier ones of Paris. Of course, it's changed in Paris too. I'm sure it's evolved there. Anybody been to Paris lately? What's going on with the building heights?
Nelson, I think here in the District of Columbia, building heights are related to the elevation of the ground. So it varies from neighborhood to neighborhood.
And of course, this, the federal construction was never considered on this. Federal construction was never regulated the heights of. That was separate.
I think the interest in the building heights is why we have decided that this coming spring, we are going to be having a debate that is co-sponsored with the AIADC on the building heights. So we are going to have a literal, like, presidential type debate over building heights. So put on your elbow pads, your knee pads, your helmets, because everybody has an opinion, and we will sort all of these details out.
Oh,
I know, and I'm sure Nelson, I feel you're going to get a lot of questions that you might not know the changes or the details of.
Right.
At the moment. But I saw two. Cliff, go ahead. Sure. I'm sorry.
Two things come to mind. If anyone's been to Philadelphia, the capital in the center of the city is.
Pardon, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
If anybody has been to Philadelphia, they have a beautiful capital that's in the center of the city. However, there's City Hall, where there are skyscrapers all around it, so it's slow and the rest of the city's tall.
Mhm.
One of the things that I read a long time ago is that they didn't want anything taller than the capital.
Mhm.
That's one of the reasons why there's a height limit.
We are going to sort that. I don't want us, we can spend the next hour and a half talking about
Yeah.
this. So I don't want us to get too
Well,
far.
quickly, I grew up in Philadelphia, and the story was, it can't be higher than the City Hall and Billy Penn. And I don't know if that was a fact or not.
But let this whet your appetite for it.
Come up to me after the meeting or during the meeting, and I'll be glad to talk to you more about this. Pardon?
Let me back up to Mr. Jefferson. What cities did he not like? At that time, what cities had skyscrapers?
At what time?
Mr. Jefferson.
There's no.
These rules were from Mr. Jefferson, right?
I'm sorry, I'm not following your question. We'll talk about it.
We're talking about Mr. Jefferson.
We'll talk about it
was
at
the
the
origin
table.
of this.
Yes.
What cities were wrong in his opinion? Did London have skyscrapers? Did Prague have skyscrapers?
Well,
Skyscrapers until the Flatiron Building.
And we don't have skyscrapers, we have.
oh, I see what the question is.
Yes. We're going into Jeffersonian scholarship as well. So we have too much knowledge in the room and too many opinions, which is why we're going to come back to this and take an entire, probably a part 1 and a part 2 is we're going to need for this, for the Height Act. So we're planning this for March, so put it on your calendars. March 17th, we're going to be here. We're talking about the Height Act. So I expect all of you who have comments to be here on that date so we can talk about that. But thank you, obviously, for bringing this up so that it is setting the stage. A couple of quick reminders. You voted in, most of us probably voted in D.C., but there are the primaries in Maryland and Virginia, a couple of places in Virginia. Early voting has started. It has definitely started in Maryland. So be sure. Primary day, June 23rd in Maryland, if you haven't done it before, and on August 4th in Virginia, as reminders. Couple things coming up. It is the summer solstice, which means, if you're not familiar with it, that Smithsonian's are open, many of them, double check if you're interested, on the mall, open till 11 p.m. on this Friday and Saturday night. So if you want to go see one of the museums at night and haven't had a chance to do so, open this weekend. Juneteenth, tomorrow, federal holiday. We talked about the difference between DC Emancipation Day and Juneteenth in April. There's a video on our website and on the YouTube channel to give you more of an in-depth history of the two of those. But as a quick reminder, Juneteenth is the day that the federal government celebrates as the last day that people who were enslaved in the westernmost region, at that time it was Texas, Galveston, Texas, found out that the federal government they had released them from bondage and that they were no longer enslaved. So there are celebrations all around DC, including with the Black Georgetown Foundation, who takes care of the black cemeteries in Georgetown. as well as the Anacostia Community Museum and the African American History Museum in DC. So if you're looking for celebrations. And the African American Civil War Museum. They probably have programming and events that you can look up.
And in front of the Quran Baptist Church, one of the old churches in the Southwest.
Quran Baptist Church. That also. So if you are looking, and most of these celebrations are tomorrow because they're taking place on Juneteenth, if you're looking for something to do. DC 250. So for the rest of the summer, if you are looking ways to celebrate either the whole nation's independence or you're just looking to see how DC is celebrating, it's dc250.us. And you can find out about different things that will be happening around the city beyond the July 4th fireworks on the mall, which you may want to skip this year. Not sure what the security perimeters, what's going to be shut down. It may be more trouble than it's worth. But the Air and Space Museum is finally reopening with several new exhibits, so that is happening this summer if you want to get back to see what they have done to that. And then we can discuss that. As well. There are two other things going on this weekend. One is a blues festival in Silver Spring. So from Saturday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., a lot of it is free. It looks like an outdoors and open to the public. So check out. You can Google that for Silver Spring Blues Festival. There is also on June 30th, produced by our own Cliftine Jones at the Arts Club. They are having a Hooray for Hollywood, celebration of the golden age of Hollywood. And there will, bless you, there'll be music and singing to celebrate Hollywood. So there is a flyer that is here, but you can also look on the Arts Club website or talk to Cliftine for that as well. Okay, so now you are all set. You have things to do. You have places that you can go until we meet again. Today, as we're talking about music, we're about to talk about music. I think it is a perfect moment in what we are experiencing to talk about how music really does unite, does bring people together, and does elevate where we are as a culture at any given time. And I think we need that right now, probably more than we have in a very long time. So I'm glad we're actually talking about music today. I'm actually going to turn it over to Pat Brown to be able to give us some introductions for our speakers. But I do need to mention that Pat Brown herself is a bit of a music legend. She was inducted into the Bluegrass Hall of Fame for her work in bluegrass broadcasting under her radio persona, Katie Daly. She has had on-air shows both in public radio, both commercial radio, and in a podcast. So more to come on that in the future, but I will introduce Pat, but please take note of that as she gives us her introductions as well.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy today to be here for this. Many of you know of a lot of music forms that were really big in Washington, D.C., Duke Ellington and Roberta Flack and Go-Go and many, but many of you have never heard of the word bluegrass and even know what kind of music it is. And I don't want to intrude on their interview because you'll get all of that, but it is a great honor to be here for part of Tom Gray. Tom has been a large part of bluegrass nationally and internationally, and when it came to Washington in the form with two bands, the Country Gentlemen and the Seldom Scene, he actually changed the direction of the music, changing it to an urban sound and taking it away from a rural tradition. So he actually has changed, and part of Washington, the sound of this music form. So I know you'll be interested to hear about that. He was not born in Washington, but he got here as quickly as he could. He was about 7 years old when you arrived in town. But he is a very interesting man and has lots to do about Washington, growing up here and canoeing and all that stuff. The man who is going to interview him We should set up an interview with him separate from Tom. NBC Channel 4 reporter and D.C. native Mark Seagraves has been covering D.C. for television, newspaper, and radio since 1999. And along the way, he's won numerous honors, including Edward R. Murrow Awards, Associated Press Awards, and several awards from the Society of Professional Journalists. In addition to his day job in breaking news, he founded the After Dark Fund, named after his late father, columnist in the Washington Star. Journalist and editor John Seagraves covered the 1960s and 70s music scene, and now Mark promotes that same scene and supports local musicians when they fall on hard times. That's a very noble thing. So why don't you fellas come on up here? We are really lucky to have these two here. Please welcome Tom Gray and Mark Seagraves.
Should we sit down and talk, or we,
Yeah, go ahead and sit down.
we can sit? Okay, let me do that. I'm wobbly like a lot of people here walking on canes. Oh, man, I can do it. Stay there. Oh, well. We got a handheld mic. Hey, it works.
Am I doing this right? I'm not, because I'm not seeing anything, but.
You gotta smile when you push it.
It's never gonna work. Oh, look at that. All right, we'll start there. Hey,
Oh,
thanks.
hey, that was the old
Thanks to
cellar door.
Cindy, thanks to all of you for coming, and to the oldest inhabitants, and to Pat for inviting me, and Tom. Since we're plugging gigs, I will just start with a couple of things about me and coming up. I will just say the Clara Parton story was fantastic. It was just so, it was worth the price of admission. So thank you very much for sharing that. And I will just plug my own work. I hope, as people who are interested in history in Washington, D.C., you might go on to NBCWashington.com. If you haven't seen my story recently, I got inside the Blackburn Laboratory on St. Elizabeth's campus, where the prefrontal lobotomies the technique was perfected decades ago by the man who did Rosemary Kennedy's lobotomy at GW University. And his laboratory is still intact all these years later, even though the building has been abandoned. And it's just a really fascinating walk through that building. And if you care about DC history, you should go check that out, and you can find that online. And I met Tom, and we're gonna talk about his history and his family's history here. But Tom and I met at the Palisades Community Church in Northwest Washington off MacArthur Boulevard. I do a series, an oral history series there called Backstage at the Sanctuary. We do it in the church, and we talk mostly to local musicians who have had an impact, and we talk about their oral history and whatnot, and that is how I met Tom. I have 2 shows coming up there in September. The great Bill Kirchen, who used to call DC home, now calls Austin home, but has toured the world as the titan of the Telecaster guitar. He's coming in September, and local singer Jenny Langer, who's now with the Bone Shakers, touring the world. She will be joining us. We're going to be starting Backstage at the Movies. George Pelicanos is going to put a show, one of his movies there, and we're hoping to get the WHFS documentary there as well, which comes as a surprise to my colleagues at Backstage. They were just learning about that now. And I will just say, since we are going to talk a little bit about music, I'd be remiss if I did not note, one, I was told back there that the Clara Barton House has a connection to DC music and rock and roll history, because at one point it housed DC Space, which was a great music venue years ago in DC, which we featured in our Backstage series. And with us today, in addition to this great musician and his wife, who is also a great bluegrass musician, Tom Minty is here at this head table, most notably recently with Texture Bennett Woods, but just a great picker. And we're fortunate to have people like Tom in our community, and he came and left because that's what rock stars do. But Mark Noon was here ever so briefly, and he is the front man of the Slicky Boys, which just celebrated 50 years at the 930 Club. And so we're really fortunate to have such a rich music history here in Washington, D.C. And yes, my dad did have the After Dark column, and I do have the After Dark one now. And that's kind of what brought us, that's how Tom and I intersected not too long ago.
Yes, so we can talk about music and neighborhood and my dear Pop, Harold Gray, who had something to do with this organization, AOI.
He left his mark on the city, and he left his mark on this organization. Absolutely. We're going to start a little bit, let's start first with your music career, and then we'll really dive into your history and your DC history. As Pat pointed out, you are a member of the Bluegrass Hall of Fame as well.
Twice.
Two times.
Two times, and well deserved. You were central to two of the greatest bluegrass bands in the history of the world. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Both the Country Gentlemen and the Seldom Scene, which recorded one of the greatest live albums ever at the Cellar Door, which if anybody, how many people ever went to the Cellar Door? God bless you all.
All right.
My dad took
Love
me
the
there as
joint.
a young boy to see everyone from John Denver on, and it was just a great room. It's now a vacant building. The Starbucks went out of business.
Oh, Starbucks is gone?
Is gone. Starbucks is
Oh.
out. I drove by the other day. But Tom, let's start. Just tell us your memories of the Cellar Door and the Seldom Scene, and that. We're not going particularly in order here, but let's start there since that's the first slide we have.
Oh, okay. The Cellar Door was the place for folk music stars to be seen around 1960. At the time, I was playing with the Country Gentlemen, a bluegrass band that had its 2 nights a week gig just a block up M Street, a joint called the Shamrock. We would walk up the street and see all the folk stars, and they would, on their intermissions, walk down the street to the Shamrock and take in our show. So we became friends with a lot of the folk stars. So we sort of headed bluegrass music in a different direction. You know, it had always been played by older white men from the South. Here we're not quite northern, we're not quite southern, we're in DC, we're in between. We created an urban sound. John Duffy, who was directing much of what we did in the Country Gentlemen and in the Seldom Scene, John had this notion that there are a lot of city kids like me who have been attracted to this country kind of music, and they would identify with tunes that we could play, which at the time would have been contemporary 1960s when we were gentlemen. And then that continued. 10 years later, I had dropped out of the Country Gentlemen, and so did John Duffy, but we started a new band, which was the Seldom Scene. I stayed in that for the next 16 years. This continued the creation of what really became known as the Washington sound. It was a more contemporary kind of bluegrass music, you know, although we certainly respected the rural roots and played all the tunes that we knew from Bill Monroe and the Stanley Brothers and Flatt and Scruggs, those pioneers. We created a new direction, so it became the Washington sound in bluegrass. But you know, we are living in our own small little niche that many people in the community are not aware of. So while there are other Washington sounds in jazz or hip-hop music now, there had always been this Washington sound, which was, you know, the bluegrass being derived from country music, but traditional, based on traditional folk music. So we could call ourselves country, we could call ourselves folk singers, and we heard enough jazz that we would improvise in ways that most people playing bluegrass were not doing. So we created this Washington sound. The cellar door, although we always wished we could have played there, back in my country gentleman days, it would have been unwise for us to go there because we already had a weekly gig just a block off the street on M Street. But the next decade, but in the 70s and 80s, with the Seldom Scene, we were then welcomed to play at the cellar door. We traditionally would play the week between Christmas and New Year's. We did that every year in the 70s and 80s and recorded this live album, whose album cover you see projected behind us.
You know, what's interesting, I'll tell you about this photograph, there are very few photographs inside, particularly inside or outside of the cellar door. And in fact, when Neil Young released recently his Live at the Cellar Door album and was looking for a cover, the only shot he could find was the photographer who took this picture, took one picture that didn't have the cellar door, didn't have the Seldom Scene sign in the window. And that's what Neil Young used for the cover of his album, Live at the Cellar Door. So the same photographer who took your picture for your cover took that picture for Neil Young's album, which he, for his liner notes, used my dad's review of the Neil Young show, which he clearly didn't read because my dad hated Neil Young.
Oh well.
But he know it in the review. So, so when you travel around the world playing music, travel around the country playing music, what did people ask about DC? Were people surprised to hear that you were from Washington, DC?
Some people are surprised. They still think of bluegrass as it's some product of the South and of rural people. And they said, why are you city people playing this country kind of music? Well, we grew up loving it. There's something culturally in the Washington area bluegrass community. We are made up of rural Southern people, Appalachian migrants who came to Washington looking for work. We are city kids like me who grew up here and were attracted to this. And we created our own community. And so it was not just my bands, but there were many bluegrass bands that played here, and others would move here from elsewhere. So there were the Southern people, there were the city people, there were the people who moved here from other parts of the country, indeed from around the world, who moved here because it was known as a hotbed of bluegrass music.
People don't think of DC as a bluegrass or country, but you know, Roy Clark started here, Charlie Daniels got his start here, Danny Gadden, Anacostia Delta. There's a documentary film called Anacostia Delta that really tracks the history of particularly the guitar sound that's, I know you're a bass player, and we forgive you, but there's a real guitar sound that really originated here in DC.
And we in Washington can be very proud that we created Emmylou Harris, who lived just 2 blocks north of here. Driving in today, I saw the house where Emmy and her then bass-playing boyfriend lived, and I remember going to that house, visiting them, and the house still looks just like it did back in 1972 when I visited there.
You have a great Emmylou story about when she found out, you guys were playing the same club, was it in Bethesda, the Red Fox?
Yes.
And she found out how much you guys were getting paid?
Emmylou Harris and her good friend, the other pop singer, Linda Ronstadt, would come into the Red Fox where we played. Emmy got her own night of the week there. I think for a while there, the Seldom Scene was playing Tuesday nights at the Red Fox, and Emmy Lou had Wednesday nights. Well, Emmy became a very good friend of John Starling, our lead singer, and John had mentioned to Emmy Lou what our pay was there at the Red Fox. And so Emmy went straight to the owner of the club, Walt Broderick, and demanded equal pay.
What a novel idea.
What a novel idea. Well, Walt said, as far as I'm concerned, you are just tagging on the Seldom Scene's coattails. We all knew Emmy would eventually become a nationwide star, which certainly did happen, but this touched her sense of pride, and she quit the Red Fox. But I was so proud that 25 years later, when we had a return to the Red Fox engagement, Emmy came back and rejoined her old friends, and we got together to sing some songs together at the Red Fox.
I would just say this is what we get at Backstage at the Sanctuary, and this is why I do these oral histories, because these musicians have such great stories, and it's great for you guys to be doing these and recording them, preserving them, so kudos to you. Tom, let's shift now and get into your DC history and your family's history. You and your family moved from Chicago to Washington, D.C. at a very early age.
Yes, in 1948.
1948, and where did your family land? Where did you guys live?
My folks bought a house in the Palisades neighborhood, which at that time was not yet known as the Palisades. My dad liked working with people. He had his job for a trade association known as the National Highway Users Conference. He would lobby, and he would advise lobbyists in all the state governments. That's why they moved him to Washington to be in charge of the services nationwide for this. They lobbied for better highways, which at sometimes was a controversial thing to do. A lot of environmentalists didn't want highways to be built over all of their sacred ground, but my dad was he worked with people. So when we moved to that neighborhood along MacArthur Boulevard, he decided we need to have a citizens association. We need to create our own new neighborhood name for all of the communities out here along MacArthur Boulevard.
So they all had different names at this time, right? Do you remember some of the names?
There was an existing neighborhood of Potomac Heights. There was an existing neighborhood of Kent. There was an existing community of Foxhall Village. In between were just a lot of buildings like the street where I grew up on Fulton Street. And my dad said that we needed to organize a neighborhood, and he recommended the name The Palisades, meaning the sloping ground leading down to the river. And that caught on. He organized the Palisades Citizens Association. He recommended that we change the name of the church that we joined from Potomac Heights Community Church to Palisades Community Church, which it is now, and you do your work at the sanctuary. This was all part of
Palisades Community Church, to just plug it one last time, because the chairman of the board is back there, the church, is the longest continuously operational non-denominational church in Washington, D.C., and continues to serve the community in so many ways. They've created the Palisades Hub, and there's everything from dinners to sing-alongs to my backstage to dance concerts to World Cup viewing parties and everything there. It's a great resource, a great neighborhood resource that just went solar in the past month too. So my final plug there. But that church is a very special place for your family.
Oh, yeah, it was, so many of our family events happened there, marriages and funerals. And I've been able to bring some of my music-playing friends over there. I brought my bluegrass group there, even my jazz group. I used to play traditional jazz. There was a band called Federal Jazz Commission, which I played in for 16 years, and we brought them there. And Pop and Mom were so glad.
16 years seems to be the breaking point with you and bands.
It was. Yeah, I was 16 years with Seldom Scene. I was
I have
16 years with
I've
the.
broken this video thing. I apologize. So that's why I'm stuck on this picture, which has no relation to Tom or me.
No.
Or the conversation. If you're wondering what the hell we're looking at, it's because I don't know what I'm doing. So Tom, so your dad comes. He's a lobbyist. You settle in, and he renames because he believes that there'd be more power in that, right? In uniting these smaller communities into one organization.
Yes, it was his idea to create the Palisades, being all of the communities along MacArthur Boulevard in the western corner of D.C.
And then he set his sight on the Japanese beetle.
I'm sorry?
The Japanese beetle.
Oh, yeah. One campaign that he ran with that Citizens Association to encourage more people to join it was to sign up for treatment of the invasive Japanese beetles. There were, millions of these annoying bugs were in all of the trees in the neighborhood, in the town, and he organized a spraying of the trees to get rid of the Japanese beetles. So this increased the membership of the new Citizens Association.
And this was all part of his master plan to kind of help the neighborhood lobby on its own behalf and bring things. What else?
Yeah, he would find a cause. He created another group called Citizens Council for a Clean Potomac.
What were those initials?
They were the organization who had campaigned for and successfully built the now infamous Potomac Interceptor sewer.
So, any of you who have seen me on TV in the past 3-4 months have known that I have spent a lot of my time at the worst sewage spill the country has ever seen, hundreds of millions of gallons into the Potomac River from the now infamous Potomac Interceptor. Thanks to your dad.
Blame it on my pop, Harold Gray. He said all of those communities were being built out around Dulles Airport without sewage treatment, and it was his idea to create this interceptor to collect all of that sewage from Virginia and Maryland and bring it down to the Blue Plains sewage treatment plant down here in D.C. So that's why that thing was being run by D.C. Sewer, even though it was handling the sewage from Virginia and Maryland.
We appreciate his service to our community. And the streetcar, these come along about the same time your dad is involved?
Well, the streetcar came before we did. I don't know exactly when. I think it was built perhaps in the 1800s. The trolley car that goes out to Glen Echo and Cabin John went through our neighborhood.
And again, I wish I had this picture to put up. In the Palisades, like many, oh, did you? Oh, great, there you go. So.
Our canoe trip.
This is the canoe trip. Let me get to where I want to be. Did I mess it up again? So this is your dad.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Now, here we go. There's Harold Gray, right?
Yes. I think this was being honored in a meeting of AOI. It used to be held in that big seafood restaurant on Main Avenue. It's gone now. I don't remember. You all have probably been there.
The Channel Inn or Phillips?
Channel Inn, I think it was. Yeah. Yeah, that's him.
He's a good-looking man.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't fall far from the tree. And this is your mom with him as well?
Yes. This is my mom at her 75th birthday, being held in the Palisades Field House in our neighborhood.
And I
Oh,
want to get back
oh,
to,
yeah.
I want to get to this picture. So this is the cover of the history of the Palisades. And this picture was taken down at Fletcher's Boathouse.
Yes,
right?
at Fletcher's.
Tell us who's in this picture.
Okay, the young fellow on the left, that's me at age 14. And at the back end of the canoe is my dad, Harold Gray. In the front of the canoe right behind them is our neighborhood buddy, George Augenbright, with his pet crow. You see the crow on his arm?
That's a crow on his
George and my brothers and I were in the same Boy Scout troop there at the Palisades.
which still meets in the basement of that church today.
Wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
Troop 61.
Now, your family started, you obviously love paddling, you love canoeing, and your family has started, your dad started a canoe trip with his brother. Tell us about that.
In my dad's family were 3 sons and 5 daughters. All of them paddled canoes, which was really rather rare for people growing up in the 1930s. But by 1947, his brother Ralph Gray, who at the time was a writer for National Geographic magazine, proposed a long article which was down the Potomac by canoe. So my dad and his 2 brothers, Ralph and Vernon, plus a few selected buddies of theirs and a photographer, paddled the entire over 100 miles. They went from Cumberland, Maryland, on the north branch of the Potomac, down to Washington, D.C. And the article was published in the 1948 July issue of National Geographic. It was successful enough that they suggested.
And this is the bound edition cover of
Aha.
that.
Oh, yeah, a bound version of that article.
Right. And so then I'm going to get back to, I don't want to break this again. So your family then, so that's 1948, that's the first canoe trip in 1948.
Yeah, well, they took the trip in 47. And after doing those 2 long articles, they decided, let's do this every year for just a 4-day canoe camping trip, and we will select different rivers here in the eastern U.S., mostly flowing through the Appalachians. I always wish I could go, and finally, once I was married, Pop allowed me to be included. He didn't want my young, sensitive ears to hear the way they talked around the campfire. So anyway, I was finally invited along in 1964 when I was 23. And ever since then, I've gone on that trip every year.
Since 1947, your family has been taking a canoe trip that continues to this day.
It continues to this day, yes. This year we paddled Antietam Creek.
So how many different rivers, waterways, you keep track of?
Oh God, I've got a log book with it all. We've done about 20 different rivers and creeks. Well, we've done the Potomac, South Branch, North Branch, Shenandoah, the South Fork of the Shenandoah. One of our favorites has been West Branch of the Susquehanna in Pennsylvania, but last time we went there, I got a terrible tick-borne infection, which has left me wobbly, weak. I'm not the man I used to be.
None of us are, Tom.
After getting that tick bite on the West Branch Susquehanna, which used to be one of our favorite canoe rivers, we paddle lots of rivers for a while.
So this is a tradition that's been going on for more than 80 years. How many generations of your family now are your kids doing this?
One, two, four.
Four generations.
Four generations. Yeah, my dad and his two brothers, me and my brothers, my sons, and two of my grandsons were along. So that makes four generations of Grays. And there are other families who traditionally go on this trip with us. Our Gutierrez friends have been going now for 30 years as well. So it's a grouping of a bunch of guys. And I'm sorry, ladies, but it's a men only.
Has a woman ever gone on this trip?
No. No. Well, I get personal here. I have a grandson who was born my granddaughter. After transitioning, he did go with us on the boys' canoe trip, so he was quite welcome.
That's very accepting of the grandchild.
It is.
It
was very.
Considering, as we'll talk a bit later, your dad is one of the reasons that women are now allowed in this organization.
Yes.
But not on the family canoe trip.
Absolutely. With all those causes that Pop got involved in, one of them was AOI.
So let's talk about, let's shift it, and I will just say, quite the underachievers, the Grays.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So here, your dad has done all this with the Palisades, he's done all this with his life, and then at some point, he joins this organization. Is that correct?
That's correct. The idea appealed to him. He loved the city of Washington so much. Although Pop was born on a farm in Missouri, he moved here to D.C. right out of high school, entered George Washington University, and he fell in love with Washington. He wanted to live here and really did spend most of the rest of his life here in D.C. So he got involved in causes, and then when he heard about this association of oldest inhabitants, which at the time was becoming rather inactive, almost moribund, they let him take it over. He said, we need to rewrite the rules of this club. When it had first been organized, it was men only. It was white people only. It was anyone over 65 who lived within the boundaries of D.C. He said, we need to welcome people of all races, of all sexes, and quite frankly, if someone identifies with this city and lives nearby, we welcome them. And he reduced the age, since he said a 50-year-old old-timer is just as welcome as the 65-year-olds. So Pop had rewritten the bylaws of this organization, and they put him in charge of it.
And do you remember coming to any Oldest Inhabitants events with your dad and kind of
Yes. He invited me to some of these monthly luncheons when they had a historic speaker down at the seafood restaurant on Main Avenue. So I attended them. I never did join the association. I never was as much of a people person organizer as he was, but my older brother Chet was, and I so wish Chet were still alive to see his namesake Pop being honored. My dad, even though he went by the name Harold, his middle name is Harold. He was Chester Harold Gray Jr. And so my older brother is Chet Gray III, and his son is Chip Chester the Fourth. So that has continued in this family.
And you were telling me your father actually went out and wanted to get a mayor of Washington, D.C. to join.
Oh, yes. When he wanted to welcome people of all races, he made it a point to befriend then D.C. Mayor Adrian Fenty and encourage him to join this association. And so he probably posed for photos with Mayor Fenty. And you would figure that must have been about 2002?
Something like that, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The last time we saw Adrian Fenty in D.C.
So by that time, Pop was in his 90s.
So how old did your dad live to be?
He was 101 when he passed away in 2008.
101 years old.
Yes.
Wow. And so let's talk a little bit more about you. You came here, you learned the bass, you became a world-renowned musician, but you had a day gig, like so many musicians do, and sadly must, because we don't support the arts like we should. You had a day gig. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I had my day job. I worked for National Geographic as a cartographer. I got a job there right after I dropped out of GW because I couldn't keep up with the studies. I was playing too much music on the side. So I started sticking up names on the maps, and then after a dozen years of doing that, they allowed me to compile the names. And of course, I always loved geography and the facts of the names on maps and the rivers that you portray on the maps. So they made me a map editor, which I was until I accepted my early retirement in 1993 at age 52. They offered early retirement. I accepted it on the terms that I would be able to come back and do freelance map work. So I continued to do freelance map work for National Geographic, mostly for the book division. And once I moved there, they allowed me to actually draw the lines on the map. Previous to that, I'd only been involved with the names, but I got to draw the whole thing, which was then scanned by a computer and managed electronically from then on. But they allowed me to do things by hand the old way.
And I want to go back. Where's that great picture of you playing? It's stacked. I'm not going to mess with it. But you continue to play music.
Yes, oh yeah, Barb and I have our own band, which is Blue Spruce Bluegrass Band. We play a few local gigs around here. We play frequently at the Out of the Way Cafe, Durwood, Maryland. The Brookville Beer Farm. Another joint, Hank Deedles on Rockville Pike. We do a few. These are all local things, but yes, I'm keeping active in it.
And the bass, it's a stand-up bass you're playing. You still lug that?
Oh yeah, I played this big. Well, fortunately, I have help. My dear wife Barb helps me so much, and other members of our band in setting things up. But once I can sit on my stool with the bass fiddle, I can still play. I can just barely walk, but I can play the bass. I can still paddle a canoe. But
What did you name it?
that's another story too. Katie, my bass has a name. I've named her Bessie. The father of Bluegrass was Bill Monroe. His longtime partner, Bessie Lee Malden, played bass with him. And so when I bought my bass, I said, I'm going to name my bass after Bessie. So I've got her name engraved or inlaid in the tailpiece of my bass fiddle.
Do you have, what's the oldest instrument you own? What's the oldest instrument that you own?
The oldest, my mandolin would be the oldest. That's a 1917 Gibson A4. Actually, if I'm playing a mandolin, I prefer Barb's Kentucky brand mandolin made in Japan, whether about 1980 or so. Is that the right age of that?
1990, maybe.
In the 90s, okay. Maybe in the 90s, but it's good. It's modeled after the Gibson F5, which is the
Musicians can really get into the weeds on this stuff. I apologize.
Yeah.
Tom Minty's the only one over here eating that. How many instruments do you play?
I really only play 3. I'm not very good at the guitar or the mandolin anymore because my fingers don't bend the way they used to, but so I can't form the chords. But on the bass, a bass plays one note at a time. I can still handle that. So I'm okay playing the bass.
What was the first instrument you learned?
Oh, the first instrument I learned, hey, like Mr. Minty here, accordion. I played accordion. And
The same as another great musician from D.C., Nils Lofgren, who's on tour with Bruce Springsteen right now. His first instrument.
And you know, I would recommend to anyone who wants to get an understanding of music theory, play an accordion. The bass buttons are arranged in order of the circle of fifths going up or down from the C up to the G or down to the F. You get the mental image of moving up or down. So you can hear that when you hear music being played, and the theory of how one chord relates to the other is something that you learn instinctively when you play an accordion.
And I just another mention of music I want to ask you about. The Seldom Scene, while you were not with the Seldom Scene, you're the last surviving original member of the Seldom Scene.
True.
But the band continues today, and I interviewed the band recently
good.
with you.
Oh, great.
And they were
Yeah.
so honored to have you bless, if you will, their work in continuing the name. What does it mean to you to have this next generation of musicians continue? You can see them at the Birchmere a couple times a year. They come through town and they still record music, but that there's a younger generation, another generation of musicians carrying on the name and the tradition of the Seldom Scene.
Yeah, that's great that they can continue it on. They're adding new songs in the same vein as we had done, contemporary kind of bluegrass, but with the traditional bluegrass instruments, the mandolin, the banjo, the dobro.
And I'll just, another shameless plug, and I'm the most shameless self-promoter you'll ever meet, but if you go to NBCWashington.com and you search Seldom Scene, you'll find my interview with the band and Tom in the studio where they recorded their most recent record, and it's just a great piece, and they really, to see these guys sit in the studio with Tom Gray, knowing the history that he brought with them, it was just really a beautiful moment to see those guys standing around you and performing for you.
Well, yeah.
I know you guys want to wrap up. Are there any questions in the audience for, yes, okay, yes sir, over here.
I don't need a microphone.
God bless you.
My name is Tim, Tom.
Hi, Tim.
I might be one of those city kids that you turned on to bluegrass. When I was 12 or 13, I went to a musical festival outside at Catholic University, and I heard the Seldom Scene, and you guys were amazing. And to this day, every day I listen to bluegrass country radio. But my question is, one of my favorite albums is Old Train.
Yes.
And you mentioned Emmylou Harris. She's not on that album. But Linda Ronstadt sings backup on that album. Can you tell us how that happened?
When you're talking about the Old Train album, no, what about it? I'm sorry.
Linda Ronstadt sings.
Yes.
Bottom of the Glass. From the bottom of the glass, she sings. And how did that come about? She was
She was a good friend, especially a good friend of John Starling, who induced her as well as Emmy Lou to come and sing on some of our recordings, and we played a few events together. It was their friendship from the times that Linda came into the Red Fox when we were playing there. And of course, we remained friends with Emmy Lou. And once John Starling finally retired from his medical practice, he formed his own band, which included some of us former Seldom Scene people, Mike Aldrich and me and Ricky Simpkins and Jimmy Goodrow. We formed our band, and Emmy said, I want you people to be my band for acoustic venues. This was early in the year 2006. So we played every gig she booked for that next 2 years. But hey, we were already getting older. She needed more energy, and so she finally let us go after 2007.
You've been fired by better musicians than that, I'm sure. You know, speaking of Linda Ronstadt and her connection to DC, she famously played at the Cellar Door very early in her career, and her backup band, when she was 20 at that time, went on to become the Eagles. Right. And so there are these great threads and connections to everything. Everything comes through Washington, D.C. Any other questions out there?
And thank you, Tom. What a great presentation. Thank you.
Any other questions out there for anybody? Yes?
I remember as a teenager, late teenager or something, I was listening to the radio while I was driving, and there was Bluegrass. There was a radio station that had Bluegrass, and then it suddenly disappeared.
WAMU.
No.
HD2.
HD2?
WAMU HD2. Bluegrass Country Radio.
So,
Yeah, it's no longer on the regular FM dial, but the Bluegrass Country .org continues, and it broadcasts bluegrass 24 hours a day on your internet. I think you can get, if you have HD radio on your FM dial, you can get the WAMU HD. Is that right, Katie? So that's still available. I wish I could get a new car with HD.
Yeah, I was listening to it last night. It's online all the time. So you don't even need that radio. You can get it online if you just do a search for it. But my question was earlier, I got into bluegrass a long time ago, by the time we were all young, and it was through WAMU because they were like 24 hours a day, it seemed, bluegrass.
Not quite.
Almost. So what role did they play? I mean, I knew about the Shamrock and the Red Fox and all of those from Gary Henderson and Katie Daly, who would promote those.
Yeah, so what role did local radio, particularly WAMU or other stations, play in the Country Gentleman and the Seldom Scene? And, you know, a lot of the musicians in town talk about WHFS at that time being so critical to popularizing music.
I think the radio station and the live performers all supported each other. WAMU began its bluegrass programming after my years with Country Gentlemen, but when I was in Seldom Scene, we certainly got a lot of publicity just from all playing the music being played on WAMU, which I think at one time, I think at its peak, there were good 12 hours a day of music. Would that have been about right, Kate? I mean, Katie was the announcer, and you know her program, Gary Henderson and others.
So all this airplay, I gotta imagine the residual checks you're still getting from your recordings must just be amazing, correct? Am I right about that?
I do get a few royalties from record sales, and fortunately for performers, there's a new entity called Sound Exchange. In the old days, no performers got any money at all when their music was played on radio. But a law was passed creating Sound Exchange, which would then give a royalty to the performers. So I do get a monthly automatic deposit in my account from all those recordings. That most of the royalties come from the satellite radio stations that I think they must have to pay a very steep commission to be able to play all of this stuff and pay Sound Exchange royalties to the performers as well as the writers' royalties to the composers.
Any other questions? Back there, go ahead.
Well, thank you, sir. I think you should come out of retirement, number one. But I want to know if you know Katie Morse. One year, I'm a member of the Women's National Democratic Club, and I arranged a bluegrass group for our barbecue, our summer barbecue, and they were all ladies, and I believe Katie Morse was one of them. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
My hearing is poor.
Oh, that's okay. Well, anyway, Katie Morse, I had a bluegrass group here, and the folks were dancing. It was so much fun. They were all girls, an all-girl bluegrass band.
All right.
And this was about, I think, before the pandemic. But I think you should come out of retirement, sir.
Well, he does. He does still play, but she makes a good question. I don't think we think of women when we think of bluegrass. Actually, I mean, I know the steel drivers have a woman on fiddle.
Oh, that has changed. That has changed. There are a lot of.
Change, and this is living proof right here. But traditionally, I mean, back particularly when you.
Traditionally, the bluegrass was created by men, but eventually women could come in and play an instrument or even sing, and now there are some very successful all-female bands.
So if we could just get them on the canoe trip, man, we would.
Get them on the canoe trip, yeah.
I'm not kidding. We would really. Any more questions out there?
Oh, Katie.
When you were the country gentleman, you were about 18 or 19 years old. And would you describe for these people what your gig was and how long it lasted and how little money you were paid at that time, playing the Admiral Grill and places like that?
Okay, yeah, I was 19 when I joined the Country Gentlemen. Although we were already recording on Folkways Records and were about to release albums on other labels, most of our time was spent playing the local bars here around the D.C. area. We mentioned the Shamrock. There was one in Falls Church called the Shamrock Room. The first joint I played with the gentleman was the Crossroads restaurant at Bailey's Crossroads, Virginia. There was another bar in Laurel, Maryland, whose name I cannot remember. There were country music park shows that we played at. Before the days of bluegrass festivals, every Sunday afternoon they would feature 3 bands, and often bluegrass would be included. This would be at the Sunset Park or New River Ranch or Watermelon Park. There was a short-lived one in Manassas called Old Dominion Park. These would feature country music acts, so we got to know the other artists. We would see their shows, they would see ours. We spent much time doing that. Honestly, playing in these local bar rooms, we did not make much money at it. We often had a tip basket hanging from the mic stand, and we had that when we played at the Crossroads, when we played at the Shamrock, and then later when we started the Seldom Scene, we were playing at the Red Fox, a longtime listener came over and said, asked John Duffy, where is your tip jar? I want to give you a tip. John said, we are well paid here. We do not need tips. Well, things have gone the other way. Nowadays, almost every local band you see is playing with a tip jar, and in some joints, that's the only pay they get. So if you go out and see live music, please give generously in their tip jar.
Give till it hurts. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing all this history. I was wondering if you could speak to a little bit about the history of bluegrass and African Americans in D.C.
The history of the African American community in bluegrass, particularly here in D.C.
A lot of bluegrass was influenced by African Americans. But there were no black participants until perhaps 20 years ago. We do have a few now who come to jams and who play professionally in bands, but it's still a minority, and I wonder if these people who do this have a lonely life, being the only person like them in this band. I know guitarists or bass players or mandolin players in bluegrass who are black people who are somehow attracted to this music that is mostly played by white people. We all welcome them now.
Anybody else?
I'd like to dovetail on the question. Where's the mic? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't want to come. Okay. I just wanted to, I have been playing bluegrass music since 1968. I taught myself the 5-string banjo.
All right.
I took 33 1/3 RPM records and dropped them down to 16 RPM so I could hear the notes. And what I discovered was that the syncopation in Scruggs style picking is similar to ragtime, similar to gospel music, and it came to me very naturally. I had my own band, bluegrass band, in college, University of Maryland, 1969 to 1973. And then I was in another band based in Falls Church from 1980 to 2004. So I'm one of those few people that you were mentioning. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad we can talk more.
I just had a question. We were talking about WAMU. I'd also like to mention WTA in the 70s. They did a lot of promotion. Bluegrass, but also folk music, and one person in particular, Mary Cliff, and I don't know if she's retired or whatever, but she helped turn me on to bluegrass and folk music, so just wanted to give her a plug.
We have one up front here.
I have a name-dropping question.
Yes.
You mentioned being in a jazz band before getting into bluegrass.
Yes.
Were there a lot of crossover musicians between jazz and bluegrass? And in particular, I'm a Glover Parker. We had Wild Bill Whalen living in Glover Park.
I'd say the only crossovers were bass players like me. A lot of my bluegrass picking friends would admire jazz players because, frankly, their chops are very impressive. So in a way, bluegrass and jazz are very similar in that each soloist wants to show off their chops and improvise on the melody when you play it. This is the influence of jazz. So a lot of my jazz playing friends listened to WAUU radio to hear the bluegrass, and I like playing jazz tunes with our bluegrass instruments. That's a crossover thing. Actually, it began with Earl Scruggs when he played Farewell Blues. That's the one I'm thinking of. Yes, yeah, and other two bluegrass bands and jazz bands all play Alabama Jubilee or Sweet Georgia Brown. There's so many jazz tunes that find their way into bluegrass.
I will say, when I interviewed Charlie Daniels just before his death, and he talked about his early days here in Washington, D.C., and he said the reason he moved from North Carolina to Washington, D.C., where he played at the Rocket Room for several years as the house band and the Dixie Pig in Bladensburg, was because he wanted to get near jazz musicians. And he was heavily influenced by jazz musicians during his early years here in Washington, D.C., that he credits with really how he transitioned from this country to rock to rockabilly to whatever it is that he ended up doing. But it was very much based in jazz early here, right in Washington, D.C.
And
Anybody
Tom,
else?
I just one last thing. Tom, over here.
Oh, well.
Wasn't one of your first public appearances at the Palisades Community Church when you stepped up to the piano? I remember an anecdote about that as a 10-year-old.
Oh yeah, yes. My first public gig was playing piano in the Sunday school at Palisades Church. They gave me the church hymnal with the assignment to go home and practice all of them. So I did for the kids to sing along in Sunday school.
Weren't you 10 years old?
I would have been 11 maybe. I think I was about 10 when I first got the accordion, and then I followed that up with the piano, and then I discovered hillbilly and got a guitar, and then a mandolin and a bass.
Anybody else? Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Gray.
Thank you both. Yes, thank you so much. Stay where you are. I will just do a quick out. If anybody wants to come back for a jam session, we are more than happy to have you all come back to play. Earl, Tom, anybody else who plays, please come. And Mark, you also have an open invitation to come back to talk to us again. So please, any of the above. Thank you all for being here. We have next, you are going to go out into the world. June is Pride Month. Don't forget this weekend, the parade, the celebration, and then come back in September. We have Bob Levy for our speaker in September, longtime Washington Post columnist. Have a safe, great summer. Thank you all. As per our custom, we have certificates of appreciation for you both, as well as goodie bags from Nelson with AOI history and DC history in there.
Happy Father's Day.
And happy Father's Day to everybody. Stay safe out there. Thank you. See you in September.
Thank you, Tom, man. That was great. Mark, such a great story, John.